Some people really want to go after something they're really passionate about or like a hobby that they really know about. That is really a good way to get into it, especially if you want to excel in SEO, because SEO has gotten harder over the years. It's not just about putting up 300 words on a page and going and getting a bunch of backlinks. It's more of creating an actual website that is going to be really well thought out and knowledgeable in a certain niche. So if you are going after, I don't know, flowers, maybe you're going to know everything there is to know about flowers, or you're going to find out. So it's a really good way of going into a niche, is just knowing what your passion is. And that way you're going to be knowing all the right questions to ask, or even if someone asks a question, you have the answers to it.
It's time for another Humans of Flippa, the series where we talk to the real-life buyers and sellers of digital assets. Today's guest is Alex Mirzaian. He's a very successful buyer and seller on Flippa, and he has had 20 transactions totaling over $73,000. An amazing effort, but he has used his SEO skill set to help build these websites that needed just a little boost in traffic, and it's come with really great results. So, in today's Humans of Flippa, let's pick his brain and see how he did it. I'd love to know, just to start, how you describe yourself. Would you say you're an entrepreneur? Are you a business broker? How do you describe yourself?
That's a good question. I tend to not think of it like that, but I guess entrepreneur could be a good example, a good way to say it. So yeah, I guess entrepreneur.
Yeah, because you did start as more of an SEO expert. Is that right, with your career?
Yeah, that's correct. I did start off with SEO and I had no idea what I was doing, but that's what I hear from a lot of SEO people. They start off not really going that course and then they end up in SEO, and then it just takes them somewhere. And this is where it took me. I started when I was like 14, 15. I was buying and selling iPhones back then, and that's kind of when the iPhone came out, and I was just selling different electronics. And then I thought, damn, this is hard. I keep having to find different vendors, different this, different that, and then trying to find new customers. So eventually I just randomly, I was like 18. I was like, what should I do next? I should look into websites. So I looked into websites and I eventually bought a fashion jewelry website, and I had no idea what I was doing with any of this. So eventually the site just went to zero, like a lot of my earlier websites did. I eventually started, I found out friends were starting to vape, and this was back in 2012, 2013. People were starting to vape, and I noticed that there was these replacement tips, the coils on the vaporizers, and those eventually just kept going out and people needed replacements. So I went on Alibaba and I found a bunch of replacements for a really good price, started selling on eBay. I was doing really well. I did really well until I got suspended about 6 months later, because vaporizers are in the gray market and they weren't really letting it. One of my customers that had purchased from me on eBay, they're like, hey, why don't you create a website and I'll do your SEO? And I was like, what's SEO? I mean, I can create a website, I can get someone to help me, but I had no idea what SEO was. So he helped me. He helped me a lot, and I kind of took it from there. I was just seeing what he was doing, and I just kept asking questions because I was so curious. And with the vaporizer niche, you can't really do any PPC, so Facebook ads, Google ads, all that was really out of the question. So with the SEO that he taught me, I kind of took it by storm, and that was my first real experience with SEO, was the vaporizer website. And then I had that website for about 7 years, but 5 years into it, I started asking myself, why don't I just start buying other websites and doing it? So that's kind of where it took me. And after that, it's all history.
Yeah, amazing. It's kind of crazy that that one tiny niche little products opened a lot of these doors, and now you find yourself on Flippa buying and selling quite regularly. When you're looking for a new business to acquire, is there anything that sticks out to you that you're particularly looking for, or is it just random?
It can be random. Most of what I've been doing is just mainly in the cannabis industry. And the reason for that is because, like I said earlier, you can't really do PPC. You can't really do any sort of ads unless it's on a specific network or platform for cannabis. So the main thing you can do is really just SEO. And I figured, hey, if I'm good at SEO, why would I just not take over this niche? So most of what I have built or bought and sold has been in the cannabis industry. I've had other websites in other industries, but it's mostly been on that. But recently I have been looking into diversifying, just different niches.
Yeah, interesting. So when you're buying and selling, are you always ready to sell, or are you putting more work into it, making sure it's prepared, or are you having that sort of always ready to sell mindset?
I like that. Always ready to sell mindset. I guess I'm kind of that way. I'm not too attached to the asset unless it's like a baby kind of,
Mm.
which the vaporizer one was, because that was kind of what I've started all of this with. I had a couple websites before that, but they all went to zero. But the vaporizer one was the one that I actually built it myself and I took it to the next level and I got it sold. So that one I was kind of attached to, but for the most part, I would say everything's for sale.
Because you never know when someone's ready to purchase, even if you're not ready, they're ready to take it on. You might as well just give it to them.
In my opinion, it actually keeps me on my feet too, because I don't want a website going stale. Because if it does, it's just going to be harder to sell. So in that case, I just always try to keep up with the SEO on all the websites. Just making sure that even if the traffic and revenue does stabilize, at least it doesn't go into the decline. And that's kind of what I'm going after.
So if someone wanted to follow in your footsteps and emulate your success, what are some really quick and easy tips and tricks that they could use if they wanted to get started right now?
You're asking some good questions. Some people really want to go after something they're really passionate about or like a hobby that they really know about. That is really a good way to get into it, especially if you want to excel in SEO, because SEO has gotten harder over the years. It's not just about putting up 300 words on a page and going and getting a bunch of backlinks. It's more of creating an actual website that is going to be really well thought out and knowledgeable in a certain niche. So if you are going after, I don't know, flowers, maybe you're going to know everything there is to know about flowers, or you're going to find out. So it's a really good way of going into a niche, is just knowing what your passion is. And that way you're going to be knowing all the right questions to ask, or even if someone asks a question, you have the answers to it. But going back to your original question, I mean, to answer it, I think going to something that you're passionate about is always a good way. And then once you learn the ropes from there, and then you can just go out and maybe find something else that's not in that same niche, or just something that you can buy and flip.
Well, it makes sense in the world of business. For me personally, there's lots of facts, lots of figures. It's very by the numbers, which isn't my strong suit. But if you choose something that's within your passions, then at least what you're working within is what you like. And on those really boring business days, you're not just banging your head against a wall wanting it to stop.
I agree with that. And social media comes into it too. So if it's something that you actually use on a day-to-day basis, you can actually make content around it on your Instagram, your TikTok, or whatever it is. But if it's something that you don't really have a passion for or you don't use, you got to outsource that. And then if you're not making much money to begin with, then that's just another expense to drag you down.
So to finish up, I'd love to know, how would you say Flippa has changed your life?
Flippa has Flippa has definitely made it easier for me to do what I do, and that's really looking for websites, really looking for good deals. And on the other hand, it really made it easier for me to actually sell the website. So overall, I'd say for what I do, it's a service and a website and a business and a company that I'm looking to use for a really long time. They've been really good to me, and I've noticed that recently there's been a lot more departments coming on board, and there's a lot more employees coming on board. Maybe I'm just selling more, so I'm getting spoken to by more employees, but I've noticed that there's more departments on board, which means you guys are growing.
Mhm.
So I'm here for the long run with you guys.
Oh, thank you. What a great plug. I'd like to thank you for joining me on Humans of Flippa.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.